Hi, morning everyone. Welcome to episode 51 of the Knitting Expat Podcast. My name is Mina and I'll be your host for today. Today is Wednesday the 2nd of March and I'm coming to you from my home in Bahrain. Hello to new and returning viewers. Thank you so much for taking the time to check me out and hang out with me today. If this is your first time, I hope you enjoy what you see, and if you are returning, then thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. Places where you can find me. So my name is Mina. I think I already said that. You can find me on Ravelry as Mina86. You can find me on Instagram as Mina Phillip. We have a Ravelry group for the podcast, which is Knitting Expat Podcast. Show notes can be found at knittingexpat.wordpress.com. I sell project bags on Etsy as Mina Makes. And I believe that covers all the main things. I have everything linked in the description bar under the video on YouTube. It's linked in the episode thread on Ravelry and on the show notes. So everywhere that this video can be found, you can find the links to everything else, everywhere else that you can find me. I wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone who's been so chatty on the Ravelry group. I've really appreciated it. It's so much fun to interact with you guys, and I'm trying to be better at keeping up with with the chatter in there. It's not been something I've been particularly great at so far, but I am trying my hardest to keep up. And I think I'm on top of all my Ravelry messages and emails and all that sort of stuff now as well, which is good. Just a quick couple of things before we get started. One, thank you so much to everyone who bought bags in my last update. Seriously, I was gobsmacked. I've never sold out so quickly before. I just blew my mind. So thank you so much. That was incredible. And all the bags are now out in the post and should be winging their way to their new homes. Number two, I was quite sick this last weekend. I will talk more about that at the end, but apologies for any coughing or sneezing, and I probably sound a bit different because I'm still a bit bunged up, but I'm not ill anymore in the same way, which is good. But if I do happen to have a sneezing fit or something at some point, then I'm really sorry. I will try and cut out any bits like that. And three, I finally, and I'm so happy I did this, I finally got around to updating the knit along thread in the group. So I went through, if you don't know, if you're new, I have a thread in the Knitting Expat Podcast group where I list out all the current knit alongs that are going on in other groups and with other podcasts that I am aware of and that people have let me know about. So it was really out of date. I didn't get around to updating it in February, and my moderator, Amber, was really busy in February as well. She had a few trips and stuff, and so the both of us we didn't have enough time to keep on top of it. So apologies that it kind of slacked during February and I missed a few knit alongs, but it is all up to date now. Everything's on there. I've deleted all the knit alongs that I've finished. I've taken them off the list because there's no point having them there anymore. And all the new knit alongs that are starting in March or I've started in February but are carrying on through March, and any that are ongoing from the beginning of the year are all in there now. So make sure you go and check it out. I think most knit alongs allow double dipping or entering into more than one threads. So feel free to go check it out and see what other knit alongs you can take part in. Right. The last thing I wanted to mention is Perry is home today. Perry's usually at work when I record. I generally don't record when there's anyone else in the house, but again, as I'll mention at the end, he got quite ill yesterday and he came home early from work. So he's decided to work from home today and try and go see a doctor later. I don't think it's anything serious. It sounds quite similar to something I've had before, and I think it just takes a bit of time to get better. He doesn't have what I had this week though, thankfully, because that was horrible. But he is home, so I've basically banished him upstairs until I'm done recording, which is fine because he has a desk and his home office, I guess, set up upstairs in one of our spare rooms, so he'll be fine. Oh, and I've also requested for our air conditioning to get serviced, so I'm hoping I'll be able to finish recording before they show up, because they're supposed to show up sometime today. Right, better get going then. Enough waffling. I usually start by sharing some new podcasts that I've been watching this week, but to be quite honest, I have over 30 podcasts episodes in my thread at the moment, in my watch later list, that I just have not had time to get around to yet. Like I get through a few and I think, okay, fine, I'm finally getting down to a reasonable number that I can, catch up with in a couple of days. And then I wake up the next morning and then there's like a whole bunch more to add to the list. And it's taking me some time. I didn't watch a lot of podcasts over the weekend when I was ill. I felt I just needed to lie down a lot or be somewhat horizontal or slightly horizontal. And I watched my podcast on my laptop in my craft room in this chair. And so I spent a lot of the weekend on the sofa, slumped down, knitting and just watching crappy TV. It just wasn't. I just wasn't in the mood for it, I guess is the right way of saying it. I just wanted some crappy TV that I didn't really need to focus on. So I just put those aside. So anyway, all that to say, I have a few new podcasts on my watch later list that I want to get around to watching. I just haven't had a chance yet, so I will probably talk about those next week. Sorry, that went off on quite a tangent. Finished objects. Let's start with that, shall we? Let's go straight into finished objects. And as you can probably tell, if you've watched previous episodes, I am wearing one of my finished objects. This is the hoodie shawl cardigan. I'll take it off in a second so you can see it properly. By Suzanne Summer. Yeah, Suzanne Summer on Ravelry. It was gifted to me by a viewer, the pattern, so thank you so much. It's been sat in my queue on Ravelry since it came out last summer. And I bought the yarn for this in New York in September. When I was there, all of the yarn was from that trip, so it felt quite, I really wanted to knit it, and it was really special. I love the construction. I really thought it was quite interesting. I'll see if I can show you the back. You can see the back. It's got the triangular shape, and it's a triangle. It starts with shawl shaping effectively to create the stripe section up to where you split for the sleeves, and then you knit this variegated section. You come back, you knit the hood. Really fun. It's the first time I've knit a hood. You knit the hood and then you go back and you do the bottom hem, the contrasting hem is what it's called. Then you do the edging with the I-cord bind off and this section. And then you do the sleeves. The sleeves are the last thing you knit. And I really enjoyed the modular nature of the knit because it made it really easy. It made it very quick as well. I mean, I started this on the 7th of February and I finished on the 27th of February. So about 20 days, and there were decent chunks of time between. There was at least one period from when I finished the whole body and the I-cord to when I actually started knitting the sleeves. I didn't knit on it for a whole week. So yeah, it really didn't take that long to knit. If I just finished the sleeve straight after doing the body and hadn't taken that week in between, it would have been done in like 2 weeks. It's a really quick knit. I think we're about to have a visit from a certain Mr. Hugo. There we go. Hello, buddy. Come to say hi. I think he now equates to when I sit here chatting to myself, he kind of takes that as like, okay, this is a good time to come sit on her lap. Which I don't mind because he's so adorable. Look at that face. Aww. He's okay. Alright, he's just going to settle down on my lap, which might make it difficult to take this cardigan off. Alright, let's do this. Right, so I posted a couple of pictures of me knitting the sleeves on Instagram, and people were asking about the markers and what they were for. You can see here. Because the pattern, I made a couple of modifications to the pattern. One of them was the sleeves. The sleeves in the pattern only come down to just past the elbow. And I didn't want to do that. I knew I was going to have a lot of yarn of this purpley variegated tonal yarn left over. I'll talk about the yarn in a minute. So I wanted to do full length sleeves, and plus I prefer full length sleeves. And as you can see, my full length sleeves basically it means almost covering my whole hand. To me, is full length. I had a thing growing up where I could never find trousers that were long enough or jumpers and anything that was supposed to be long sleeved enough to fit me because I was a tall, lanky child. And teenage, I was just always quite tall for my age, so I never really found clothes that fit me properly. So now that I'm knitting my own like jumpers and cardigans and stuff, I'm all about the long sleeves, because I never could have long sleeves, if that makes sense. They always ended up like here, which is that awkward length. It's not quite to the wrist, but it's just that little bit too short. It was always so irritating, as you know. Anyway, yes, so back to these markers. What are they for? Marking my decreases, because I knit my sleeves one at a time, which is really funny because I knit socks two at a time always. Like I never knit my socks one at a time, but I always seem to knit my sleeves one at a time. I've never knit sleeves two at a time. I think it's just also because at the beginning when you're first picking it up, it's quite awkward, and it's quite, because it's so close to the body, it's all a bit cumbersome. So even if I was going to knit them two at a time, I wouldn't knit them two at a time from the very beginning. I would knit a couple of inches and then put them onto the same needle. But because it seems to always be the case, I think every time I've knit a cardigan or a jumper, I have always modified the sleeves. I've always just tried them on as I go and done the decreases to suit my arm. Like I'd never do the decreases according to the pattern. I don't do it the same way as the pattern necessarily, or as frequently as the pattern will require. So I can't. That's why I end up doing them one at a time, because I try it on as I go and I make notes on how it fits and where my decreases are, and then I can replicate it on the second one, which is why because if I did them two at a time, it would be very awkward to try on the garment to check for fit. So these markers mark my decreases. Like I said, there we go. That's what that's for, and I left them on just so I could show you. And yeah, I've taken them out on this sleeve. Yeah. Other modifications that I've made, I modified for gauge, because whilst I really like the pattern, it calls for a very awkward amount of yardage, which would mean you would effectively have to buy 6 skeins of yarn, 2 of each colour, to knit, for me, to knit my size, which is the medium size. It's not the largest size. But I would have a ton of yarn left over, and it just seems like such a waste. So I modified my gauge. The pattern calls for 6 stitches per inch, and I went up to 5.25 stitches per inch, which meant I could knit the smallest size. I mean, use the stitch counts and everything for the smallest size in the pattern to get the 38-inch size, which allows for a little bit of overlap at the front as well when you hold it closed. And it gives the perfect fit. There's not a lot of excess fabric under the arms, which can sometimes happen when you do like raglan shaping, which is effectively what this is. And I added extra stitches when I picked up for the sleeves, because the schematic showed sleeves that were like stupid tiny. I'm sorry. I mean, as I've said this before, I don't have the fattest arms in the world, but I certainly don't have the skinniest arms in the world either. I have what I would consider to be very normal, like chubbiness of arms. So I added extra stitches to accommodate for the size I needed. And the other modification I made was in this section. This section in the pattern, I didn't realise until I got to it, is in reverse stockinette, which I kind of felt would be a bit weird because everything else in the pattern is either stockinette or garter. And this whole top section with the hood and everything is all in garter stitch. This section is all in stockinette. So I thought if the bottom was in garter, it would be a better balance than reverse stockinette. Plus, I don't really like reverse stockinette that much. What are you doing, Hugo? And then I also made it longer. I basically, because I could tell that the back wasn't going to be long enough for what I wanted, so I knit for as long as I dared before so I wouldn't run out of the grey before I did this edging section. And I stopped just at the right time, because by the time I finished, this was all I had left. It's about 3 grams there. So I'm definitely glad I stopped when I did on this bottom bit. And also I figured that garter stitch stretches more, and I could stretch it out more when it's blocking to get a little bit of extra length in there, which actually worked out perfectly. This is a really good length. When I sit down, this pretty much the bottom of the cardigan hits the seat, which is kind of the length that I like. And yeah, I think that really is the majority of all the modifications I've made. out of 4 full skeins of yarn. But in fairness, this grey yarn, the Downcast Donkey, sorry, I'm not being really good at this. The yarns that I have used, the grey is Verdant Griffin. It's their Little Traveller base, and it's in the Downcast Donkey grey colourway. This variegated, sorry, this variegated is, no, Hugo, that is not your yarn ball. The variegated is Wollonwein yarns in the Strasser base. Is now the Hugo show. Hugo, all right, okay, buddy, okay, come here, back up. Wollonwein yarns in the Strasser base, which is 80/20 merino nylon, and this is in the Enjoy the Silence colourway. This was a gift from Kristen, so thank you so much, Kristen. It was lovely to knit with, and I literally only had enough left over to stick in my journal. That was all I had left over at the end of that skein of yarn. I used every last scrap of it in the body, and again I knit that section until I ran out of yarn, was basically what I did. And don't fall off. And then the purple is Mad Tosh sock in blackcurrant. And this was the only one I had 2 skeins of. So I had 1 skein of the Strasser, 1 skein of the Downcast Donkey, which, because it was a light fingering, had over 500 yards. It had around 500 yards in this one. So it was, if it was a regular fingering weight, I would have needed 2 skeins. I had 2 skeins of the Mad Tosh sock and the 1 skein of the Wollonwein yarns. And because I messed around with the gauge, I managed to use the majority of what I had left, and I was left with only 3 grams of this and about 20 grams of the Mad Tosh sock. So perfect for a couple of minis, a mini in my blanket and a couple of minis to give out to friends. So I'm pretty happy with that. That was 4 skeins of yarn used to its maximum potential, as it were. Yeah, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And let me just take it off and show it to you. And it's not on my body, hopefully. If I can get this off without disturbing the Hugo. All right. And this is all blocked now, which I probably, maybe is self-explanatory, but yeah. Try and find a way to show it to you nicely from the back. Move the hood to the front so you can really see that back bit properly. And then the bottom. That's how it turned out, and I love it. I love how it turned out. I love the colours. I just love it. And the sleeves are still really fitted. They are the most fitted sleeves I've ever knit into a garment, but I like it. And you know what? This sort of thing, it stretches out slightly over time anyway, so it's not a big deal. So next finished object I have to show you is the second version of my brioche design. So this is how the asymmetrical version has turned out. I started at this end, worked all the way over to this end, and this isn't blocked. Like, it's too big to get it all in one shot. And this is the other side. And you can see how I've striped it with the 3 different colours. So these 3 colours are Madeleine Tosh Tosh Merino Light. Up here, started with the Lolita colourway. The yellow is Candlewick, and this blue at the other end is Baroque Vintage. And if these look familiar, then yes, you are correct. I use these for my exploration station shawl. The leftovers from that. And then I still had a ton left over after this, but I think after 2 projects, I am done with these colours. And I think they will become minis now. Whatever's left will be turned into minis. And I've already started knitting them into my blanket. There we go. I love how versatile this shawl is and how you can wear it in totally different ways. And I like the striping because then you get the different colours. And just to give you an idea, this is what the first version looks like. So this one is equally very long, but this is deeper. So the first version is actually produces an equal triangle shape. Like if you fold it in half, it is a perfect half and half of each other. I'm not folding it quite right, but it is perfectly half and half. Whereas the one I'm wearing now is more asymmetrical and isn't a perfect half and half. Actually, if I put them up next to each other, Hopefully it gives you a better idea of what I mean. Do that quickly. Sorry, it's a little bit more difficult when there's a cat on your lap and you're trying to not entice them to grab your knitting. Okay, you can kind of see what I mean there. Not the best representation. The asymmetrical one is actually slightly longer than the other one, even though it's not been blocked, but that's just the nature of the way it was knit up and how it worked up. I should also say the grey is a Cascade Heritage sock. And I can't remember the number, but it's steel. Online it's called the steel colourway. Yeah. Sorry. And I was gonna, let me show you these. So when I was knitting up or deciding on the design and how I was gonna do it, see if it worked. This was the very first swatch that I knit. This is the very first little swatch that I knit up to test the increases and decreases and see if it made the right kind of shape that I wanted. So that was the first one. And actually the very first version of the shawl, which is this one, which is the equal triangle, I knit based off of what I did for this one. Then as I was going through it, I realised that the edge stitches aren't quite as neat. I mean, they were fine and there's nothing wrong with them per se, but there's no clean sort of selvage, and you had to be careful about how you were carrying the yarn to make sure that it wasn't going to look funny. See, there's no like clean selvage on this side. So I decided to try and to come up with a version which did have a selvage. I first thought about doing an I-cord so that the shawl would be entirely surrounded by an I-cord, which I liked the idea of. But the reason I ended up deciding against it was because I-cord is not that stretchy. And if I was going to surround the entire shawl with I-cord, I would be surrounding what is a very, very stretchy fabric with something that is not that stretchy in comparison. So I kind of felt like it was going to affect what the finished shawl was going to look like. Then I just tried a version with a simple selvage edge stitch. And I like how that turned out. And that's the version that I did. That's the version that's in the pattern for both option of shawls, but that's the one I knit up in the asymmetrical version, just to see how that worked up. But I like how they both turned out. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. And I was going to talk about this later, but I may as well mention it now. I did look at the thread to see whose name suggestion polled the highest, and the winner was Le Moelle, which is the French for squishy or brioche. It's also used to describe the pastry brioche, so I thought that was very, very appropriate. And because, I keep going on about how squishy everything is, I thought that was, it worked. So I'm really happy with that result. Thank you so much for everyone who voted. The second place name that came up was a very close second, and that was Maiden Voyage, which I also really liked. So Moelle won with 33% of the vote, and Maiden Voyage came up second with 30% of the vote. So very close. So congratulations to Marie GL on Ravelry, who suggested Le Moelle as the name, and I will send you a copy of the pattern once it's released on Ravelry. And I am hoping to get the pattern released sometime in mid-March. Dates aren't exactly set yet because it's not going to be released before I go to London, and it probably won't be released during my first full week in London because I have the retreat and then I'm going to Rome. So it'll probably be sometime the week after that. And by then all my testers should be finished as well. About half my testers are done now, and then I'm still waiting on a couple of them to finish up. So plenty of time. What else was I going to say? I think that pretty much covers it for finished objects. I don't think there was anything else on those that I wanted to talk about. If I have missed something, please let me know. Right, I'm just going to take a quick break to grab a drink, and I will be back with you. Right, okay, we're back. Okay, yes, sorry. So this next section is going to be a monthly section that I do, and it's going to be a bit of a monthly knitting stats roundup. So I thought I'd share with you my February knitting stats. I actually ended February with no projects on my needles, which was really, really nice way to end the month, other than my Cozy Memories blanket, which doesn't count because that's planned to be a long-term project. But it was nice when I cast off my shawl on Sunday. I think it was Sunday evening. I decided not to cast anything on Tuesday, not to cast, just, have a day. Just on Monday, just have the day. And either, and just knit on my Cozy Memories blanket, which I actually didn't do in the end, and I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, so for my February knitting stats, I knit eight projects. Started and finished 8 projects in February. There were 2 shawls, two pairs of socks, 2 pairs of slippers, and 1 hat and 1 cardigan. So that pretty much covers a good realm of finished objects there. Although slightly disappointing compared to my 35 pairs of socks from January. So, but still pretty good. And I also did 11 squares in my sock yarn blanket, which I will show you in a minute. I knit 1,351 grams of yarn. That's actual knitted into projects, not just total weight of skeins. I knit 4,654 meters of yarn. And sorry if you can hear that. I think they're taking the rubbish out or something. So yeah, I knit 4,654 meters of yarn. So that's half the meterage and half the weight of yarn that I knit in January. Skeins out. So this skeins out is the number of skeins that I've knit up, even if they're partial skeins, but I'm not planning on using them the leftover for another project, or I'm just going to use them for mini skeins, something like this. I'm still counting it as a full skein out because, like I said, I'm not planning on using it for anything else other than maybe a mini skein project or a scrap project, where I don't actually count skeins for those. So the scrappy socks that I knit and the scrappy hat that I knit last month doesn't count for skeins out of my stash because I didn't count that yarn as stash in the first place because it was scraps. I hope that made sense. So in total, I have 20 skeins that went out this month, and that includes skeins that includes yarn that I've gifted or given away as prizes as well. Skeins in. So this is skeins of yarn that have entered my stash this month, was 18 skeins in, which doesn't sound too bad, but to be honest, most of that was yarn gifted to me, traded, or donated for prizes. So yeah, but I'm still in the red because of January's acquisitions, because that was definitely more yarn in than out in that month. Even though I knit 35 pairs of socks, I still bought more yarn than that. So not too bad overall. I'm still pretty happy with that. I'm looking forward to seeing how March goes. Moving on to works in progress. I think I will start with my Cozy Memories blanket since that's the closest thing to me. And as I mentioned earlier, I've added 11 squares to my blanket this month. So when I showed it to you last week, I had, these 3 and these 4 knit into the blanket last week. So then I've added the rest this week. So this one is self-striking yarn by the Wool Barn, and this was in her Wellington colourway, which I really liked. And then this purple one down here is a Shibui, which I knit a phoenix hat out of. And up here is Berenvuller Bare and Stark sock in a half and half one-off colourway that I knit a pair of Vida socks out of for my sister-in-law. Then I have this rainbow square, which is by the Lemonade Shop. I think it was called Cloudy Day. And I knit a sockhead hat out of that. Then down here, I have a square from a German sock yarn. Can't remember which one it was, but the yarn was sent to me by a lovely viewer, and I knit a pair of socks out of that for my mother-in-law. Then these 2 up here are the first 2 of the Madeline Tosh skeins that I'm adding. This one is Cove. This is Tosh Marina Light in Cove, which I used for my Summertide shawl. And this one is the Baroque Vintage, which is what was in my brioche shawl, the moelle shawl, and in my exploration station. So those are the squares that I've added to my blanket, and I'm liking the fact that my blanket is nice and big and foldable and squishy. It's so squishy, like the shawl. Let me just move that there. Then I have 2 new projects on the needles, which I literally cast on last night. I have been so busy with so many things to do. I literally, from when I cast off that last shawl until 5 p.m. yesterday, I didn't pick up the needles. I hadn't done any knitting for like almost 2 days. Crazy. But yesterday was the 1st of March and it was time to cast on all new projects. The first thing I cast on was this pair of socks, which I'll be able to show it to you this way up. And this is, if you haven't already guessed, this is London House yarns in the Four Founders colourway, and these are dyed in two skeins so that they are as close to matching as possible. And so this is the tag, London House Yarns Sock Duo. It's 100 grams, 400 meters, 75% superwash BFL, 25% nylon in the Four Founders colourway. And the yarn also came with 2 stitch markers, which I can grab them. I just haven't popped them on my project yet. So one is a broomstick, and the other one is a lightning bolt. So very Harry Potter themed. Oh no, Hugo, that is not your toy. Just trying to get the broomstick. The other one's a lightning bolt. Pop those back in the bag. And if you couldn't tell, so the Four Founders refers to the 4 founders of the Harry Potter houses. So at the top here, the red and gold is Gryffindor. The blue and grey is Ravenclaw. The yellow and black is Hufflepuff. And then the green and silver is Slytherin. So I've done 1 full colour repeat. And as you can probably tell here, they're slightly off. Not by much, well, by about 3 rows. But because the stripes are only about 2 to 3 rows each anyway, it starts to look quite significant. They started out perfectly even at the beginning, like the first 6-7 rows were perfectly matched, and then they started to go off a little bit. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal at the end of the day, as long as the difference doesn't increase over the course of the socks. If it just stays at 2 to 3 rows, then, you know, when you're wearing them, no one's really going to know. The only time it will really be obvious that there's a difference is when I put in the heels and at the toes, because that's usually when these sorts of differences really show up. But I don't mind. It's not a big deal. So these are on US number 1s. I should say, I did contact Steph from London House Yarns. She's the dyer behind the yarn. And I asked her, I just wanted to be sure. I was like, is this normal? Like, because as funny as it sounds, as many socks that I've knit, I've not knit with that many indie dyed self-striping yarn. I've knit with a lot of like commercial self-striping yarn. I've knit all the knit picks for Lychee. I have knit a lot of, like I said, a lot of commercial self-striping yarn. But I think the only indie dyed self-striping yarn that I've knit with so far, I have a few in my stash, but the only one I've actually knit with, I think, is the Wool Barnes Wellington yarn. And hers, that yarn was, I was so surprised. It was like within half a stripe for the whole pair of socks. So I was like, wow, this is great. So I didn't really know. I don't know how much of a discrepancy in terms of the matching up is normal. Hey, Hugo. So I contacted Steph and she was like, no, this sort of thing is generally quite normal, but because it's a shorter stripe sequence, it's any differences is more obvious because the stripes are shorter. Like I said, not a problem. She even did offer to send me a replacement. I was like, it's not a problem. Seriously, you don't have to. I love the socks. I'm going to love the socks anyway. And like I said, it's not going to be obvious when I'm wearing them. No one else is really going to care. And frankly, I don't really care that much either. I'm not that OCD about it. It doesn't bug me. I was just curious because I wasn't sure how common this was. But apparently, and I can imagine it would be, because whilst I'm not entirely sure exactly how self-striping yarn is dyed, I do understand that it is incredibly labour intensive. It is very difficult and it is almost impossible to get it exactly perfect. So I love it. I don't care that it's going to have a slight difference. It is not the end of the world. It is a pair of socks at the end of the day. And if you couldn't tell, I did a twisted 1x1 rib. This used to be my favourite rib. I used to love doing this on all my socks. And then when I got into I had a flurry of sock knitting towards the end of last year when I realised I had a bunch of socks to knit for gifts. And I switched to 2x2 rib just because it was slightly quicker. And then for my month of socks in January, I almost exclusively did 2x2 rib. I think I only did 2x2 rib, again because it was just quicker and I didn't have time for twisted rib. But I missed it, so now I'm coming back to the twisted rib. I really like it. I won't be doing it for every pair of socks because it does actually hurt my hands quite a bit. And there's a few other things that have sort of hurt, aggravated my hands a little bit recently, this last week, and last night after knitting the ribbing on this and the next pair of socks I'm about to show you, my hands were hurting quite a bit yesterday, or last night rather. So that's that pair of socks. And my next pair of socks, which I also cast on last night, I should have showed you, I don't know if I talked about it, this is in my Exploding TARDIS project bag that I made. I don't know, I'm covering up my tag. Romina makes project bags. The ones that I had sold out in my shop update, and there will be more. I do have more of this fabric, but probably won't be for a little while. But I had to keep one for myself because, you got to cross for the fandoms like Doctor Who and Harry Potter, because why not? It's all fun. And then in another one of my project bags, this is one of my earlier prototype bags, is another pair of socks. And seriously, you might need some sunglasses to look at these because they are stinking bright. They're almost highlighter. How amazing are these socks? I love them. These colours are brilliant. They're not, the darker colours aren't showing up quite right. I mean, this colour is more of a pinky red than it looks more purple on screen than it is. But I love these. It looks more like that. That's the colour of those sections. It's just not showing up for some reason. Love how these are knitting up. I did do these on 2x2 rib just because, like I said, by that point my hands were hurting quite a bit from the twisted rib. And and I love how these are knitting up. And I forgot to mention the other pair of socks were on 64 stitches, and so are these. And this yarn, because I know you guys want to know what it is. Look how awesome that is. It is Frolicking Feet, Maine made, done roving yarns, hand painted. And this is in the Mardi Gras colourway. It's 100% superwash merino. 4 ounces is 480 yards, so very generous yardage on this. And I was trying to figure out what to make with it, but I just wanted to make socks. And I don't care that it's 100% merino, and I don't care that it doesn't have nylon in it, because frankly, life's too short to care about that too much. These socks will be for me, so I will take care of them. I will do a contrasting heel, so I will use a nylon yarn that has nylon in it for the heel, and it has a good twist to it, so I don't think that's going to be such an issue. And it is quite a plump yarn, and I'm knitting it on 2.25mm needles, so that's hopefully going to help create quite a nice tight dense gauge, which will again help with the fact that this is just 100% merino. It is super fun colours. This was I got this in a swap that I did last year, and I just loved it as soon as it came. And and so this is going to be one of my new set of design socks that I'm designing. So I'm showing it to you now because I've done one row of patterning which you are not able to tell at all. So yeah, I will show you what this sock looks like knit up, but I'll show you from the back, so you can't actually see the pattern when it's done. Like I said, I have a host of sock designs that I am working on, and each one I want to knit 2 versions of. So it's a lot of socks. I think I worked it out. It's somewhere around 14 or 16 pairs of socks at the end of the day to knit up. But I enjoy knitting socks, so I guess that's a good thing. And that's it for works in progress. I don't have anything else on the needles right now. I will be casting on, I thought I might have enough time to do it before I filmed today, but I didn't. But I will be casting on my featherweight. I had been toying with the idea of designing my own cardigan with that yarn, but I don't think I'm going to do it with this one. I'm just going to use the featherweight. I will be messing with the numbers again. I probably won't be knitting it exactly to the pattern, but I will do my own thing with it. But I will use the featherweight as the basis to start with anyway. And we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for whips, and I'm going to take another quick drink break here, and I will be back. All right, now we're back with the knit along news and giveaway news. So first up, we have the 4,000 subscriber giveaway, which I closed the thread this morning and drew a winner. So just to remind you what the prize is, there is a skein of Cascade Heritage Silk in 5608, which is this lovely rich green colour. There is a set of there's the Flower Power Needle Cozy kit from Knitting I Love in this lovely sort of like pinky purple shade. There is a tin of London mints, and this tin is really fun for stitch markers and stuff afterwards and notions. There is another little I don't know what you would call this, little like trinket box, I guess, which I got locally. And there is a handmade notebook by a lovely friend who sent this to me to use for a giveaway. And I believe now Grace is in Australia, so I'm so glad she finally made it there. She was like traveling through Southeast Asia on her way to Australia from Ireland. And you also win a medium-sized Mina Makes Black Cats project bag with the metallic green and gold lining. And you also win a copy of the Chelsea Beach shawl pattern designed by Holly of the Swift Knits podcast. And I will let Holly know who the winner is once the winner has contacted me. But bear in mind that there might be a few days delay in hearing from Holly, because I believe she's in the process of moving back to the US from Australia. I believe she's back now, but I don't know what her situation is. So a little bit of patience on that one for the winner. And the winner is, enough suspense, we had over 500 entries for this giveaway, which is crazy and awesome. And thank you so much for everyone who participated. It was so fun to read all of the new things that you have been learning recently. There's been a lot of 2 at a time sock knitting and fish lips kiss heels, which I'm so excited about. Thank you guys so much for giving it a go if you hadn't done before, because it is so much fun. And it was great to hear that so many of you were inspired by Marsha and I knitting like crazy people last month or 2 months ago now. And yeah, oh, and I did want to say, and I'd been meaning to mention this and now it's sort of just popped to my head, quite a few podcasts have mentioned it, so you've probably already heard by now, but Patty Joy, who is the designer behind the Fish Lips Kiss Heel pattern, is going through some pretty intense things at the moment in her life. She's going through cancer treatment and things like that. She's trying to raise money to get together with her family and host like a family reunion type thing. And yeah, I mean, the pattern's only $1. It's $1. Seriously, just go and get it. If you haven't gotten it, or if you have got it and you know someone who hasn't, gift it. It really isn't much, and every dollar counts. And it really would mean a lot to her for you guys to go out and support her. And honestly, it is my go-to heel pattern. I've tried a few other heels and it is the one that I enjoy knitting the most. I think once you get it, and it's very simple and easy to follow. And yeah, don't let it intimidate you. I know it looks intimidating at first. It is 16 pages, but frankly, most of that is just information. It's not how to, you don't need 16 pages of information to knit a heel. And frankly, if so many people are knitting this heel, it can't be that hard. If people can memorize the heel, you clearly don't need 16 pages to knit the heel, because if it's all information on how to like measure your foot accurately, this, that. If you know your foot, if you know how you, even if you're new to knitting socks, if you're knitting them top down, the only thing you really need to know is for about an inch before you start the heel, the back of the foot needs to be knit in stockinette. Then you put in the heel, and then you knit until you get the foot as long as you need to, and then you put it on. Toe up is, in my opinion, toe up is where the cutout is more applicable than cuff down. If you knit toe-up socks, the cutout could be more important, and in which case then I would probably recommend you read some of the information on how to measure your foot and do all of that stuff. But again, not the end of the world. If you have knit short row heels before, then you'll have a vague idea of where to put the heel in if you're doing it toe-up as well. Honestly, really not a difficult pattern, and I really, really encourage you to go out and give it a go if you haven't. Right. And I realise I probably haven't actually told you who the winner is yet. I am so sorry. I'm clearly not with it this morning. Right, so the winner of this lovely prize, and like I said, it was lovely to read all of your comments and things that you've learned. There's quite a few, lots of different things in there. Really interesting. I've locked the thread now. And yes, so the winner is number 47. I'm sorry for dragging this out so long. Number 47, and that is Shah Knits from Glasgow, and that's Charlotte. So congratulations, Charlotte. And she says that she learned how to do colour work for the first time recently. She was knitting the bubble hat, which is on my list. So congratulations, Charlotte. This wonderful package of goodies will be winging its way to you soon. Please get in touch with me with your address, and I will get that out in the mail to you soon. I may actually wait and mail it to you when I get to London, because you're in Glasgow and postage would be significantly cheaper, I think, if I mailed it from the UK. But we'll see. Depends how soon you get in touch with me. If you get in touch with me pretty quickly, I'll probably mail it out before I leave. If not, if it ends up being quite close to when I'm leaving, then I'll just wait and post it once I get to the UK. Either way, it will get to you, hopefully quickly. So please get in touch with me, Charlotte. And yeah, thank you so much. If you can send me a PM with your address, then I will let Holly know to send you the pattern as well. Right, so we also have other knit-alongs that are going on at the moment. We have the sweater knit-along, which is running until the end of the year. I will be drawing for like the first quarter prize, as it were, at the end of March. So make sure you get your finished objects in, and that is being run in conjunction with the Kiltercraft podcast, which is Nessa, lovely Nessa, and I caught up with her podcast yesterday, so I'm really behind on people's podcasts. I've really, really been impressed with the amount of finished objects that are in that thread at the moment, and the amount of like beautiful, detailed projects that people are working on. The colourwork patterns, colourwork cardigans and pullovers and stuff. Honestly, it's amazing. It's really inspiring. So make sure you go and check out the thread if you haven't already. And then we also have the Knitting Expat Shawl Cal, or the KE Shawl Cal as it's hashtagged on Instagram. Thank you so much to everyone who is taking part in that. That is running until the 31st of March. You are more than welcome to cross dip into as many different knit-alongs as you would like. That is definitely encouraged. And yeah, there are a bunch of prizes for that one already, and I think I'm still waiting on a couple to arrive in the mail, but we will see when they show up. And if they don't show up in time for this, then I will put them for the next knit-along that we do, because there will be plenty. And the last bit of news is the expat yarn swap. I have assigned all partners now, and a few people were having difficulty contacting their partners, or their partner was being unresponsive. So I reassigned them partners based on the people who had contacted me to say that they were willing to be backup partners. So those have all been reassigned. As far as I'm aware, there are no more issues. Everyone is in touch with everyone else. All partners are communicating, and packages have already started to be sent. I believe someone has already received their package, which is incredible. If you are having issues contacting your partner, please let me know. If they're being unresponsive or they're not communicating with you or whatever, please let me know and I can reassign you a new partner. I have a few more people left on my backup list, so please do let me know if you're having issues. Otherwise, I have started a new thread for the expat swap. It is called Knitting Expats. Sorry, I think it's called Expat Yarn Swap. Let me just check my computer. Let me just check what I've actually called it. It's called Expat Yarn Swap Share the Love. So the idea for this thread is to share pictures of your packages that when they've arrived, just to sort of like just share with everyone. A lot of people do ask questions about, what goes into a swap package. So also it would be a good resource for other people who may have not taken part in this swap but want to see what sort of things people include in swaps, to see as well what was included. But just to share the love, as it were, share what you received, and also most importantly, the thing that I really wanted to do was to share information about the yarn that you received, especially if it is a locally produced or locally dyed, small indie dyers and stuff. It would be great to spread the word about local dyers from places and people who we wouldn't have otherwise heard of. And that was kind of the whole point of this swap, was to expose us to new people, new dyers, new yarns, and from places that we otherwise wouldn't have found out about. So please make sure once you've received your package, you'll pop into that thread and share with the rest of us. And if you can, and if it's easy for you to do so, to post a link to the website or Etsy shop or something for the yarn. So if someone does want to go and buy yarn, it's easy for them to do so. That would be great. I think that was the suggestion. The suggestion to have a separate thread for that was made by someone who was taking part in the swap. So thank you for that suggestion. And that thread is now set up. And so I'm looking forward to seeing pictures of what everyone's gotten, because that would be really fun. And I actually still need to get in touch with my swap partner and get her address. We've been in touch. I've been chatting with Melissa, the Spicy Homemaker, but I need to get your address, Melissa. Your package is almost ready. Okay, so move on to question and answer. Like I said last week, I'm not actually going to answer any new questions this week. I'm saving up questions for next week's episode. Next week and the week after, I'm kind of going to do a bigger Q&A section, because I'm having to, more so for the week after, I'm going to be pre-recording the episode, basically. So I'm going to pre-record some stuff in advance before I leave, and some things I'm going to have to pre-record when I'm in London, because the week of my 53rd episode is the week that I'm going to be at the retreat and then in Rome, so I'm not really going to have much time to record anything. So all needs to be pre-recorded. So I'm planning on doing a larger question and answer section. I did this last year at some point. I think it was around end of August, September time, when I did a big Q&A section in an episode. And that went really well. So I'm saving up some of the questions I have in the thread. I'm thinking of answering some really common questions that I get asked a lot. Things like traveling with knitting, what I take when I travel with my knitting, knitting needles on planes, it's questions I get about socks. What are the other things I get asked a lot about? Can't remember at the moment, but I get there's a certain few questions that I get asked again and again and again, and so I'm going to make a point of recording that, that episode is going to have answers to these frequently asked questions, so I can post that in the Q&A thread. So if someone has those questions, that they can go and check that episode, and that information will be in there. But also to answer any other questions that come up as well. So if you do have a specific question for me that you want me to answer in that episode, then please do let me know. Pop your questions in the thread, and I will by next Monday, and I will make sure to try and answer those. So thank you for that. Right. And moving on to other things, upcoming events. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to the Curious Handmade Country Retreat, or Manor Retreat. I can never remember exactly what the title is, but the Curious Handmade Retreat in Cumbria, in the UK, which will be lovely. And I'm so looking forward to it now. It's like less than 2 weeks away. So that's really exciting. And I'm really looking forward to that. And then, of course, there's Fibre East in July, which still not 100% about whether or not I'll make it, but I'll know nearer the time. Then we also have a coupon code for the Tangled Skein CA Etsy shop, and that's a shop run by Sue of the Two Tangled Skeins podcast, and the shop will be linked in the show notes. The code is expat15, all in capital letters, and that will give you 15% off your order, and it expires on the 31st of March. And the next thing I want to share with you guys about, you may have already heard of if you watch the Hugh Loco podcast, but Nicole of Hugh Loco and I have been in touch since sort of like mid to end of January, and we've been emailing and like communicating with each other as we're discussing a design collaboration that we are working on together. Nicole is dyeing the exclusive yarn, like she's dyeing some exclusive colorways for the shawl that I will be designing with that yarn. So it's kind of like a cross-continental design collaboration, which is really fun. And like I said, if you've watched Nicole's podcast from this week already, then you'll have she's mentioned it in there as well. She was worried about it. Was quite funny. I got an email from her, obviously after she'd filmed, but before she'd published the podcast. We were like, I hope you don't mind, but I've mentioned this on the podcast. I'm like, no, it's fine, it's okay. I was going to ask you if it'd be okay to mention it as well, and so it all worked out. It's fine, Nicole. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I don't have the yarn yet from Nicole. Nicole's been, like I said, if you've been watching her podcast, you'll know she's been incredibly busy preparing for a trunk show and some wholesale orders and stuff, so it's totally understandable. But I am hoping to get the yarn from her soon. I think it'll probably arrive sometime whilst I'm away in London, which is perfectly fine. I'd rather have it waiting for me when I get back. But I have skeined up some other yarn in the meantime to do a first run of the pattern and see how it looks. Like I said, I've planned it out. I know what I'm doing, as it were, with it, and I just need to knit it up and see how it looks. And so really looking forward to that. Fingers crossed if all goes well, we will be hosting a joint knit along for the design in June. But again, dates to be confirmed. It all depends on how quickly I get the yarn, how quickly I can knit up the shawl, get it tested, all this and that. So plan at the moment is for a knit along sometime in June. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. My How I Do Brioche tutorial, like I said, I'd been planning on filming that this week. Then I got sick. So because I was sick, I wasn't really able to film it over the weekend. I could barely talk. At one point, I think my throat was gone so bad that Perry was like, you sound like you've been smoking like 30 a day for decades. Like, that's how bad my throat sounded. It was so hoarse. And it's only been since yesterday that I've actually started to feel more like myself again. So I'm hoping to be able to film this tutorial sometime in the next few days before I leave. It's very much dawning on me now that I have less than 7 days before I leave for London, and I have so many things I need to get finished in this time. It is unbelievable how much I need to do. Not that I'm complaining, I am not complaining at all, but it's all things that I want to do. But I always put more pressure on myself than I probably should. Anyway, so we will see. Hopefully I will get round to that. That is my hope, to get it done in time before I release the pattern. Right, shop news. Like I mentioned, totally blown away by your guys' response to my last shop update. There won't be another shop update until early April. I can tell you that now, because I'm away for all of March and I get back on the 30th of March, so there won't be an update before beginning of April, but there will be one at the beginning of April. I have mentioned that I'm going to the Curious Handmade retreat. What I hadn't mentioned before was that Helen has decided to have a mini marketplace at the retreat. I mean, the retreat is very small. I think there's less than 20 people going. So it's a very small little marketplace. I think there's only like maybe 6 or 7 of us who are going who have products to sell, I guess, as it were. And so she's asked me to bring some of my bags to sell at the retreat. So that is what I am doing. I am busy preparing bags for the retreat. I've also squirreled away a few bags from my last 2 updates. There were a few that I just didn't put into the update because I knew I didn't have more of that fabric. So I put those aside with some that I'm sewing up now to take for the retreat. And then whatever I have left at the end after the retreat and any that I don't take with me, all of that will go into an update once I get back. So also I wanted to say I'm no longer going to take custom orders. I'm no longer going to take pre-sale orders. I'm not doing any of that anymore. I was taking orders before, putting stuff onto Etsy and taking custom orders and stuff for bags. I'm just not going to do that anymore. If I've promised you a custom order bag already, don't worry, I will do that. But any requests that are coming in now, I'm saying no to, because it's getting to that point where I'm starting to feel like it's not really fair. Before, when I would put bags up and, they'd still be, bags wouldn't necessarily sell out in the first night and they would still be there for a couple of weeks, I didn't mind so much. But now I just don't feel like it's really fair to do that anymore. Also, because taking custom orders, I know this is not based on anything that I'm getting from you guys, but it's stressful for me because of the pressure I put on myself. I don't take money from anyone who places a custom order before the product is finished. I don't promise anyone a specific date for when the bag will be ready because I can't commit to specific dates with the way my life is at the moment. But even so, even with that, it always weighs on the back of my mind that I have this thing that I need to do. And it's just added pressure that I don't need in my life right now. I have enough things that I want to do and get done, and it just feels like not only is it not fair to everyone else who wants a bag, it's just I don't think I need to deal with that right now. I don't need that kind of like self-imposed stress, as it were. I kind of don't feel like it's necessary. And like I said, there are a lot of patterns that I want to work on, designing. There are, I have some personal sewing projects that I want to work on. And I just feel like I need to simplify my things a little bit and like take a step back. So I'm going to put a pause on custom orders and special requests and stuff for bags and things. As much as I enjoy doing them, I can't do that right now. My life is a little bit crazy in terms of the amount of traveling that we do. So as it is, my updates are so sporadic because of all the traveling. But I think what I'm planning on doing, April is going to be a bag month for the most part. Then May, I am going to take off from sewing bags. I'm going to have May for personal sewing projects. I really want to do a quilt top. Nothing fancy, really nothing fancy at all. But I really want to do a quilt top. And if I'm just focusing on bags, I'm never going to get around to sewing a quilt or garments or anything else that I want to do. So May, I'm going to take off from sewing bags and just do personal projects. And then in June, will be another bag month. And then July, I only have a couple of weeks in July before coming back to London, but I will see how I feel by that point. So that's kind of my plan at the moment, I think is the best way of putting it. Right, I'm going to take a quick break here and I will be back with acquisitions. Alright, back with acquisitions. And yes, so first thing I want to show you is actually not knitting at all. It is a quilting book. And you guys have probably seen this on a bajillion other podcasts, and I believe the first person who talked about it was Sarah from Love Suck Wool. It's Quilts You Go Made Modern. And I've been thinking about getting this book for a while now because, like I said, I want to do a quilt top. And I thought Quilts You Go sounds like a good one. There is a craft shop down the road from me. I know I mentioned this like quite early on in the podcast, like when really early days when I started the podcast. I haven't talked about it much since because I really haven't been there. They do a whole bunch of like, it's really odd. It is a mix of a craft shop and an equestrian shop. So half the shop is craft supplies and art supplies, and the other half of the shop is horse riding supplies. It is a very strange mix of two things. It is interesting to say the least. So you're on one side of the shop and you look over and then you see saddles and like riding equipment on the other side. It is kind of strange, but they do sell yarn and some other sort of knitting and crochet supplies, but it's mostly acrylic and acrylic blends. It's not really the sort of thing that I want to knit with or work with, but I believe they sell batting, like quilt batting. So I need to go and check and see how much it costs. Sorry, Hugo relocated from one box to another box. I have to see how much it costs and to figure out if it'd be cheaper to buy it in the UK when I'm there. But we'll see. Anyway, so I want to give this a go and see how this works. And I ordered this book back in December and it only arrived this week. It only arrived a couple of days ago. There was a bit of an issue with the postage, quite clearly. Like I said, I ordered it back in December from Book Depository, and I heard about Book Depository from the Canadian Knitter podcast, Sarah from the Canadian Knitter podcast, because she mentioned, and I didn't realise this until she said it. She talked about it a couple of times before, but the last time she mentioned it, she said that they do free worldwide shipping. Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter what you buy, you get free shipping. So I went online and checked. Cost of the book was about the same as ordering it anywhere else, and free shipping just totally sold me, because better than buying from Amazon and having it shipped to the UK, because books are heavy. This has always been my thing. When I've ordered books, I've ordered them to my parents' house and then I've had to bring them back whenever I've gone over, and that really takes up weight in my suitcase. So if I can order books and get them shipped to me directly for free, then that's so much better. And the only issue was there was a bit of a shipping problem, I guess. And I contacted them when did I contact them? think it was at the end of January, beginning of February, I realised, hey, this book still hasn't shown up, and I ordered it like back in December. It was at the end of December, but still. And I contacted them to say that the book hasn't arrived yet, and could you let me know where it is? And they got back to me and said, okay, well, it looks like we'll send you out another one, and just let us know if the first one arrives. So it's been that was early February, and so this last week this book arrived, and they always say it takes around 10 days for the book to arrive once it's been shipped. And I didn't get another shipping notification, so I don't actually know when the second book was sent, and there was nothing on the packaging or in the envelope that this came in to tell me when this was posted or when it arrived into the country. So I don't know if this is the first book or the second book. I guess we will see if another one shows up in my mailbox at some point. But anyway, this book arrived, and yeah, I'm looking forward to digging in and figuring out what I might want to try out of this one. And the next load of acquisitions I have to show you is my last batch of yarn from New York. And yes, it is from Knitty City, and this is a combination of 2 trips to Knitty City. One trip I went there with Perry, and the second trip I went with Eric, or Sticks Plus Twine. So, and I'm not going to apologise for like rustling and all that stuff, because frankly I love the sound of rustling. It sounds like new fun things. So I'm sorry if you don't like it, but live with it. It's fun. But I will take everything out just so it's not that annoying. So the first trip when I went with Perry, I got these 3. So this one is my very first skein of Madeline Tosh Vintage. I've never knit or bought a skein of Madeline Tosh Vintage, which is their worsted weight yarn. It's so soft and squishy. And this is in the Shire colourway. It's 200 yards, 182 metres per skein, 100% superwash merino. Have you guys noticed, and this is something I've realised, have you guys noticed that none of the Madeline Tosh yarns have a weight on them? None of them say how much is in a skein. None of them say if it's 100 grams or 4 ounces or what. So you know that it's 200 yards, but it doesn't tell you 200 yards per how much. Is it 100 grams? Is it 110 grams? How much is it? It's and I've looked online, I can't find the information anywhere. So if any of you know for sure, because I weigh some of my skeins, and some of my skeins might be like 100, like my fingering weight skeins. One might be 105 and the other one might be 115, and that's a 10 gram difference. That's quite significant. I don't know, what is the standard for Madeline Tosh? What is their baseline standard? Is it 100 grams? I assume it is, but it doesn't say anywhere on their packaging, and I can't find any information about it online. So yeah, just a thought that occurred to me the other day. This is in the Shire colourway, and this will probably be a very lovely, very squishy hat. I picked up this skein of Great Grey Owl, which is in their Twist Light base, so it's a merino nylon. It's 75% merino, 25% nylon, superwash merino, I should have said. This is the Great Grey Owl colourway, and this is going to go with a collection of rainbow skeins for a cardigan in the future, which I am so excited about. That cardigan, you have no idea. I got this skein, which is one of Knitty City's 10 exclusive colourways from Madeline Tosh. This is also in the Twist Light base, and this one's called Brooklyn Brownstone. This will be a pair of socks, for sure. Pair of socks. And that's what I got when I went with Perry. And then when I went with Eric, or Sticks Plus Twine, other than helping him buy all the yarn, when we were there, I was like, no, you need to buy this, and you need to buy that, and you need to buy that. And he was just like, okay, give it to me. I also picked up a bunch of stuff too. I picked up this skein of Newt fibre. It's hand-dyed yarn, and I believe she's a local dyer to Knitty City, like local to New York. And this is in the Speeding Automobile colourway. 100 grams, 400 yards, Morningside sock, and it's 100% superwash merino. So this is, Speeding Automobile colourway, and none of you will be surprised by my choice in colours. Purple and green, of course. But it's really, and there's a little like sort of streak of brown running through there, which is quite nice as well. So yeah, looking forward to making something out of that. I also got a couple of more skeins from their exclusive of the Knitty City exclusive colours. And these are both on the Tosh Merino Light base, so they're single ply fingering weight base. So this one is Urban Flagstone. It's 100% superwash merino, 420 yards, 384 metres. Really lovely. Really, really lovely colours. A lovely neutral. I tend to lean towards a grey neutral, and this is definitely more of a brown taupe sort of neutral. It's a little bit different than my usual, but I like it. And this one is 79th Street Sunset. And for those of you who don't know, Knitty City is on 79th Street. And 79th in Amsterdam, I believe, is the address for Knitty City. And I really love this purple. Really, really lovely purple. And then I also picked up, the last thing I got was this skein of Twist Light in the Found Pottery colourway. I really like all the different speckles. It's probably definitely leaning a little bit more pink than I would normally go for, but I really like the balance with the other colours. And yeah, I think this would make a really fun pair of socks. Or something else. I'm not sure if this will definitely be socks or not. But love it. And that's all I have for acquisitions this week. I think we will move on to week in review. I'm going to try and keep this short. I do have quite a lot of notes, but just because I don't want to forget stuff. So like I mentioned before, a couple of days after my last podcast, I got really sick. We went to bed one night and I was sort of turned to Perry and I was like, I feel like I'm getting a sore throat. And he was like, and I kind of get that every now and again, and sometimes it kind of just fixes itself and goes away straight away, or sometimes it develops into a full-blown sore throat, cold type situation. And lo and behold, the next morning I woke up and I was feeling like rubbish. And that was Friday. Felt quite crap. I spent most of the day on the sofa watching films, knitting the first sleeve of my cardigan, and knit a few squares in my blanket. Just really wasn't feeling very with it. I had so much sewing I wanted to do over the weekend. I just did not touch my machine at all Friday, Saturday. And the Saturday was even worse than Friday. I think we went out and bought some vegetables and stuff, and I made like a massive vat of soup. It turned out to be like 5 litres of soup. It was just a bunch of vegetables. I think I posted a picture of it to Instagram. It was like carrots, celery, onion, garlic, leeks, potatoes, edamame, like soybeans, sweet corn, and then I also grilled several chicken breasts separately on the George Foreman that we have, and then cut it up and threw that into the soup as well. Some stock, some seasoning, and turmeric, a lot of turmeric. I always put a lot of turmeric into most dishes. I even put turmeric into bolognese and all sorts of stuff. It's just really good for you, and why not? It always makes everything just look a little bit more yellow. otherwise it's really good. You don't really taste it in the food that much, which is nice. Been eating that soup all week. I still have some left in the fridge for lunch later, so that's not a bad thing. It lasted quite a while. Yesterday was, like I mentioned earlier, yesterday was the first day I actually felt like myself. I felt okay. And so I took the weekend off from sewing, but yesterday and the day before I've just been back at it full speed. And like I said, I kind of hurt my wrist yesterday. Yesterday was the day I was cutting out all the corners to box my bags. If you've sewn project bags before, whether you sell them or do them for yourself, you'll know what I mean when I'm talking about boxing the corners. And that really hurt my wrist with the scissors, and like sort of rubbed on my thumb quite a bit. I was actually really worried I was going to get a blister. But yeah, that hurt my wrist quite a lot. Not great, but yeah, I didn't knit at all on Monday. Only really picked up my needles yesterday afternoon. It's just been really busy with the sewing, trying to get all of that done. And I've just been catching up on so many other admin things that I've been needing to do, replying to a couple of emails that I've been like delaying on, and updating the knit along thread and all of that sort of stuff, which I've just been slacking on, I guess. I'm trying to think what else is on here. Oh, I posted a couple of pictures this week. One on Instagram, one was of when I was blocking my cardigan and Hugo and Derek were in like a couple of boxes around the blocking cardigan. And a few people commented, was like, oh, that's a really good idea, laying like cat traps on either side so they don't sit on your knitting. I have to say I'm quite lucky. The boys are not that fond of, I mean, they're not saying they're not fond of, they're not that fussed by my knitting. It doesn't bother them, it doesn't like excite them, unless I am physically dangling yarn in their face, like I did last week with Hugo and the strands from the tails of the blanket. They're really not that bothered by it. They're not really that interested in playing with it or trying to eat it or anything like that. So even if I lay something out to block, they walk around it. They don't even walk on it. Like Derek is really funny. He'll go right up close to it, but he will step right around the knitting. Like he won't even step on the knitting. So doesn't bother me at all. Like I'm so grateful that they are like that they're not fussed about the knitting, and that they won't destroy anything. But yeah, they love boxes. We have boxes all over the house. I counted the other day. We have something like 11 or 12 boxes strewn around the house, and I have 3 in my craft room alone. So they'll come in and they'll like sleep in one box, and then they'll get up and move to the next box and all that sort of stuff. And they go through phases. They have their favorites, and then they kind of rotate, which is quite funny. And then the other picture I posted was a couple of nights ago. I'd made fajitas for dinner, and usually when we have dinner, we sort of serve up in the kitchen and just bring our plates into the living room. We don't bring everything into the living room and serve up there. Just for one, it's just 2 of us, so there's not much point, and 2, it's just easier with the cats not to do that. But when we have fajitas, it's just easier to bring everything to the table and assemble the fajitas as we eat them. But I knew that Derek was going to want to go after our salad for the fajitas. So we had another tub of salad that was almost finished, and there was a handful of leaves at the bottom. So I thought, okay, this can be Hugo's salad. So I put the tub out on the table so we could eat our dinner in peace while he was having his salad. And it worked really well. And there's still some left in it. He didn't eat all of it. So we've been putting it out every night we go to make dinner. He just comes in now, like he just starts meowing and circling our feet until we give him lettuce. He's a very weird cat. But like I say to Perry, and this is quite funny, I was just like, in the future, when we eventually have children, we have a built-in like teaching tool. They see, Hugo eats his greens, Hugo eats his salad. You should eat yours too. I'm talking way in the future here, but I thought that was quite a funny thing. So even the cat eats his salad. But anyway, like I said, I think Perry and I have both been getting sick this week for one very particular reason. We started turning the air conditioning on, especially at night. We've had to turn the air conditioning on at night when we go to bed because it's just a little bit too hot to sleep comfortably. I don't turn the AC on during the day still. Like I can get by throughout the day without turning it on. And I will go as long as I can without turning it on. I'm really not a massive fan of air conditioning in general. It just feels very artificial, which I guess it is. But at night it gets really uncomfortable and we can't sleep. So we have to turn it on. And I'm pretty sure like it was within 3 days of turning on the air conditioning that I got sick. And yesterday Perry came home early from work because he was feeling very dizzy and like he was feeling very unbalanced. And it's something that I've had before as well. And he's previously suffered from sinusitis. When we first moved to the Middle East, he got a really bad case of sinusitis caused by the air conditioning. So yeah, we've both suffered because of air conditioning this last week. So I've put in a request to our maintenance team to come and service the air conditioning and clean them because they've not been used for months. I think we turned them off in November, end of October, November. We turned them off. So it's been like 4 months since they've been on. And I'm pretty sure that there's probably some dust and crap built up in there that's making us sick. So hopefully they'll be coming by sometime today to clean the air conditioning, which would be nice. Then the boys, like I said, they've been loving to nap in the craft room, which has been great for me because I have them for company during the day when I'm in here. And then what else has been going on? Oh, Perry's leaving for New York on Saturday night. Late Saturday night, he's off to New York for a week of classes. And then next Wednesday, or technically really late Tuesday night, my flight's like in the middle of the night. I leave for London. And then we actually extended my trip and Perry's is slightly different. So after this trip to New York for Perry, he no longer has set his schedule's no longer set. It's more flexible, and his classes and when he goes and where he goes depends on what electives, what modules he picks going forward. So his next module that he's picked is in London, and that starts at the end of March. So we figured out that Easter happens at the end of March. So if Perry takes a couple of days extra off from work, then we can spend Easter weekend in the UK. I was going to fly back about 3 days before Easter weekend, so we were like, okay, I extend my stay. I basically stay an extra week, and Perry flies in 4 days earlier, and we get to spend Easter weekend with our family. So they were spending the first 2 days with my family and the second 2 days with his family. And Easter weekend in the UK anyway is a 4-day weekend. They get the Friday and the Monday off, so it's a nice long weekend. So that'll be good fun. That was something we hadn't initially planned on and only really decided to do in the last couple of weeks. So I will be in London from the 9th to the 30th 9th to the 29th. I get back on the 30th because it's a nighttime flight. Not that you really needed to know all of that, but I share, so there you go. So yeah, like I said, hopefully I'll get the brioche tutorial done this week. And that's really, that and the bags are really the main thing that I really want to get done before I leave. There are a few other things. I've got some swap packages I need to send out, and a few other bits I need to sort out. But otherwise, I think I'm okay. I think I have enough time. I know I have enough time. I've kind of scheduled it out in my head, what I need to do every day to make sure I keep on top of everything. So, thank you so much for joining me today. I think this is, fingers crossed, hopefully a slightly shorter episode than the last couple of weeks have been. And I know you guys like the long ones. Everyone keeps telling me how much they like the longer episodes, but I think I've hit my limit on what I can do today. I'm starting to feel a little bit like, I don't know, I'm still not 100%, so I guess I should take it easy. But thanks for sticking with me, and hope to see you guys next week. Take care. Bye.